Hey folks, Jonathan here, back in the little rat's nest here, trying to figure out what we're going to do about this pedal. I think for sure what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this one off the size of a clutch pedal, just like the brake's supposed to be, and then we're going to take this thing back out of the firewall and go ahead and reinforce the firewall where it bolts through, get it straight, and somehow this thing's kicked over toward the driver's side some, so we'll see if the firewall's not straight there or what, but we'll try to get that straightened out. And then we're going to brace this all up in. We'll probably brace it to above right here, because that's pretty, heavy, and then we'll probably brace it over to the right, to the one that goes over top the steering column, and it's actually the one that the brake pedal pivots on. Not the correct way. The correct way would be finding an like an 88, 87 truck, and when I say 88, this is 88 brake pedal, but if you get an 88 C30 instead of an 88 3500, it would have a old body style. The Suburbans and the 1-tons, took a little while longer to change over. So, but I don't have it, and I'm not going to look for it because I just want to go ahead and, like I said, use what they've done and just straighten out their crap. And because, the logic behind it was good, it was just they attacked it kind of bad. So we'll look out under the hood here. As you can see, it's crooked as can be. It's close to the brake booster, but we can deal with that. But we need to get it straightened out and get it where it needs to be beforehand. Now we can't do a lot of spacing in between unless that pedal is adjustable, and I don't think it is. I don't think the rod is adjustable on it, and so we've got to get that figured out. And we will probably take later on and this hose, and I'll cut it off shorter and go ahead and rebend it and put a double flare on it and shorten that extra line up, because this slave cylinder would have went on the other side of the engine on this Chevrolet, would have went on the passenger side of the bell housing. But let's get at it by taking this off, and then see what kind of hole we got cut there, what kind of mess we really have, and we'll try to get it straightened out. Okay folks, here's our pedal out of it. They've done some cutting and grinding, and of course they didn't have a clip on it, so that's dangerous. And the pedal, as you can see, don't line up to the rubber pad. So if I was guessing, I would say that they bent the pedal over to try to get it away from that brake pedal. So firewall. They did a pretty good job cutting the hole, I guess, but of course it's on an unlevel section there. So this is the point to where even I feel like I should just give up and go a different route, but that's totally understandable though. So that's not what we're going to do. I'm going to make a plate to go on the inside of the firewall that has this same cutout as what you see here, and then a little bit bigger so I can do some welding. We'll probably do it out of maybe 8 or maybe just 16 gauge. It's not going to be really important because we're going to tie the bracket in really good, so there won't be any movement. The only way you're going to get a crack on the firewall is if you get movement, and we're going to do away with any movement in it. What we'll do is get that, and then we'll get the pedal mounted all back in straight, get some supporting done to it and all, and then we'll slide this back on it. And I'm sure that I can get the external reservoir for this master cylinder, so it just goes in the same place where this one slides down in. So we're going to do that later, and that'll solve any clearance issues we have. I can see where they cut out for the they cut out the wiper motor a little bit for it right through here. Now if I didn't think I could change that to the remote system, I would do something completely different here, because I want to make it where if windshield wiper motor went out and you've replaced it, you wouldn't have to do a bunch of modifying to get it to fit in. So, but like I said, it's going to work out because we will find an external reservoir for that, and you know, worst comes to worst, I can make the piece that goes in there. It's just going to be an O-ring and slide in, so that's not a problem either. So, you know, that's not an issue. I'm not going to worry a bit about that. We're going to go ahead and try to get the pedal supported straight, get it in there where it needs to be, get it looking right, get the other one cut, and then we'll move on from there. Okay, and my camera went dead on me, but we've got this back straight the way it needs to be. And as you can see, it still hits the windshield wiper a little bit. It don't hit it here. What we're going to do, I was thinking that the earlier ones, or the 88s, had a different reservoir, but they actually just had a small round reservoir. So what we'll do is we'll end up pulling this off. I'll make a piece that slides down in it with an O-ring, probably out of aluminum, with a hose barb on it, and we'll put a remote tank on it. As long as it's mounted up higher, we can probably go in here somewhere and mount it and hook that up, and that'll do away with having that. But I mean, it is in there good and straight and solid, so we don't have to worry about it. We're going to try to get the fuse box back in place. We're going to go through these wires, find out what they've got. These wires here that's cut, that's all going into the tail light wires. To, you can see the brown parking light and the dark green. There should be a yellow. There it is. Yeah, that's all going to the back. So evidently they had it. I don't know why they'd have it up here, but they had wires put in here, so we can do that. Like I said, the wiring systems on these are pretty simple. That just plugs in there. They've just got a lot of stuff unplugged. That goes into the top side of it. So, I don't know. What a mess. But first thing we'll do is try to get it where it'll crank over. I do have power to the fuse box. So I will go ahead and drop this column down and get this other plug back in. This may be the only reason why it's not turning over and starting. I don't know. And we'll get this extra wires that don't need to be here out of the way. Alright. Okay, we got it plugged in. Still don't have nothing. I'm going to hit the key switch. So we're going to start checking with the test light. Make sure we've got power to it. Make sure, let me see, get this grounded somewhere good. Okay, we do have power to it. So our purple wire would be the one that would be putting our power out to the solenoid. Try this again. We'll stick it in here. Yep. So we're good there. So our issue's not going to be in here. Our issue's probably going to be either on the starter or somewhere between here and the starter. So we'll get this bolted back up in. We got that plugged back in good. So we'll trace that down. Okay, so we know this thing's running through that fuse box, and God only knows what they've got there. So what we're going to do is we're going to trace over a little ways, and we're going to tie into that purple wire, and then we'll see if we can cut power on. Okay, so I started to check this purple to see if that was our issue, and I realized that it's not hooked up. So we're going to have to hook it on the solenoid, and I don't know what wire they've got hooked to the solenoid, but it's going to have to come off. And we'll swap it, but if you look, you need to do some work on this. Something you got to watch where it goes through the frame. I see burns. So somebody has put it together here. We'll definitely get that straightened out. It must have probably, originally it would have ran around the back side through a tube, I'm sure. And somebody's just moved it all around. It's been on the exhaust, I'm sure, plenty of times. So let's get this hooked up so we can at least crank it over. Alright, we'll go starting from the key. It's a start. These wires here I need to just rip on out and get rid of. This was there was one running from the battery, or I'm sorry, there was one running from the starter, or two running from the starter, one from the power and one from the solenoid, running into this push button switch, which really just didn't need to be here. So we'll get all this out of the way. Okay, I'll show you what we've done for a bracket here. I've made this piece. This is out of 1-inch square tube, pretty heavy wall, and I cut out for the the bow in here. I've got it bolted on to the top of the bracket for the pedal. And then I made this piece, and what I did is I just cut this out, and then I just bent it up on the brake, and I wanted to sort of do like what they did over here. And I drilled some holes in it for spot welds. This is actually going to sit, it'll sit at an angle on our piece, which is not a problem, but it's going to sit right in the dash there and get welded in. I'll spot weld it, then I'll do little welds on each side of it to try to make sure it don't go anywhere. And I think these are just spot welded in through the holes, or just plug welds. But we'll weld it good to this piece, and then we'll tighten these bolts up, and that should keep our pedal where we need it. Support it really good. And I supported a firewall. I just put a small piece in there and I just tacked it in, but I was having camera trouble, so I think my camera actually went dead on me when I was in the middle of that. But I'll get this cleaned up. We'll get it in there, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay folks, we've got this finished up. I've got it spot welded in really good, and I got it welded in at the bottom good, got the bolts tight, and I'll push the clutch in. You see there's no movement whatsoever. Might be a little bit of movement from me, but so it's not working too bad. It's not really hard. It's actually pretty soft. We'll start it up and see how what goes in gear. There's reverse. That's first. That's granny gear. Releasing about halfway up. Should be fine. Alright. Okay, I feel safe about that. I don't think there'll be any issues there. It don't move anywhere at all, so we're good to go. And we can still unbolt the bracket out and put it back in if we need to. We just sort of copied, the GM bracket there. And the wiring, I've got a lot of it straightened out. There's not much left. Cruise control's not going to be hooked up. We're starting good. We got power to the fuse panel, and I've just got to figure out a few things. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that blue and brown wire, and I am familiar with the brake light wires, which is the orange and white, but I've got to figure out where this is going and why they're hooked there, and get the brake light switch hooked back up. And there's not much more. I mean, we're, like I said, there's nothing to this wiring system really. We've got to get the fuse panel mounted back in the firewall. But anyway, we'll keep on the wiring, I guess. I've got to do a little more grinding on my pedal on the side of my pedal here so I can get that rubber on it. And I don't have a really good rubber for it, but I mean, I've got one, so we'll get it on it. And anyway, that pedal, like I said, it's actually down a little farther than this one, and it's tilted at a little bit different of an angle. I can cut it loose and redo it if I want, or we may leave it, but it's good and solid. We don't have to worry about it going anywhere, doing anything. So we'll figure that out as we go. All right, I'll show you more. Okay folks, I think I'm going to call that a video. Got the dash back in. The only thing that works is volt gauge, which I kind of figured. Temperature gauge and oil pressure gauge are probably not hooked up because they got the aftermarket gauges in it that do work. So the only thing we're going to worry about is the fuel gauge. It's not working, but I'm sure we can figure it out. And all the wires are done here except for the two that I hadn't figured out yet. And I'm going to do a little research. I just can't place them. So worst thing is they could be speaker wires. I mean, I don't know. I'll have to trace and see. But anyway, everything else is pretty much straightened out. So we don't have a dash pad. I'm going to look for a dash pad. I wish it had one on it, even if it was bad, because I can get one of them covers for it. But anyway, we've got this taken care of. Clutch is taken care of. So we've got some stuff to do here. Of course, the wiring out here, which is not that big an issue, and then the strap that goes under the steering column to hold it in. We'll just work around it and do all the little stuff. We need a shorter belt on the power steering. A lot of little stuff to take care of, and we'll just go through everything and then change the radiator and all that. I've still, like I said, got to change the rear and make the rear dry shaft, and then we'll go to working on making sure all the lights work and everything. So it won't be too much longer on this, and I'm probably going to get back on the go-kart there a little while and see if I can get it finished up. So appreciate everybody watching, and till next time, bye.